All right, Jim, let them all in. We'll have some fun. All right, so welcome to Scaling Multifamily Brands Live. We'll get started right now. We'll allow the other guests to join us as we get going here. So the topic today is something that we've thought a lot about. We've done several of these shows now, and we're talking about how to do the one thing that does many things, right? And so this one thing that we're going to talk about today should help you attract premier capital, those of you that are looking to grow your business. And also, when we get this thing done, we're going to allow us to solve what we believe is our talent problem in multifamily. And I'm going to tell you that most people are not doing this. And I'm super excited about it because I know it's going to be super helpful. And, if something comes up while you're experiencing this event, send us a note. You can email me directly. It's patrick@mclients.com. And I'm happy to take any suggestions on topics you want covered. We have a lot of questions already that have been submitted, and we'll go through those in Q&A. So before we dive into this topic, I just want to welcome all the great people I see here in the room. And I know we've got quite a bit of people here, so I can't see everybody all at one time, but our team will shift through and allow me to kind of see everybody's faces. And this is not a broadcast event, so we want to make this very engaging, super useful, and you can take back to your business and get some results. So make sure, if you're joining us, we're hiding anybody that doesn't have a camera on. So I can appreciate that, but this is designed to be a productive meeting, not a broadcast. So make sure you share your camera and so we can see you, right? So at the bottom of Zoom, down below, there's a little reactions button. I'm sure you guys are familiar with how to use this now, but basically you can click raise your hand and it'll allow us to know, who has a question, who wants to ask a question live. We have plenty of questions that have been submitted already, but if you've got a question you want to ask live, that'll be an opportunity to let Jim on our team, in my view, he's the upper left corner, and he can answer or take the questions that you have, and we'll present those and bring them forward. So just wanted to make sure that you understand the format. So I'm going to open up with a few thoughts, just some foundational context things, and then we'll go right to Q&A. I'll probably spend maybe 10, 11 minutes on that. And that's pretty much how it goes. If you have any questions as they come up, write them down, put them in the chat. We may not get to everything today, but we certainly will use that as a way to bring and find value as those problems arise in your business. So for those of you that I do see some new faces, and I do see some faces that are back. And if you're joining for the first time, I'm Patrick Antrim. I'm the founder and CEO of Multifamily Leadership. And what we do at Multifamily Leadership is we focus around multifamily investment, technology, leadership, and innovation. And we've learned over the years that these are the areas that are essential to driving investor results and yields, right? And a great workplace for multifamily operators, and also the type of customer service people want to experience renting these investment assets we put together. So we believe that these areas, and we've learned this through COVID, are essential, and they're never going to go away. You're always going to have investments, you're always going to have technology, you're going to have innovation and leadership. And that's what keeps people coming back to our content. So that's sort of the filter of content that we produce. We want to make sure that if we do something, it's not noise, it makes your life better in some way, or makes a problem go away, right? And if that happens, you're going to be excited about engaging with us. So now, some of you might not even know this because we've been very strategic about how we spend our time, but we also have a multifamily media communications platform, and that's designed for strategic business growth. You've seen some of these activities already in the marketplace, but really what we're doing is we're an accelerator to trust. And we go beyond public relations or PR to get you seen. That's really what we're trying to do here, is get more visibility so that people understand the problems you're solving in your business and creating value for investors and operators. And that's over at mclients.com. If you want to know what that's about, you can go kind of learn all that we're working on there. But what we do is we work with companies that are essentially already winning, and they want to go to the next level, or they want to win even more, or they want to create less complexity finding clients, all of those things. And our focus in this process is on the business firm, the people that built the company and run it. And that's important because when you're trying to raise capital and build a team, and you want to negotiate with lenders, and you're submitting offers and you want to get those offers accepted, these things need to be in place so that you have that trust. And it's more important today than ever before. So we're going to discuss all of that over the Q&A today. But look, we're talking about, maybe you're sitting there and you're trying to get offers accepted. Investors are thinking, do they have confidence in your team? Or are you the syndicator that they're going to choose, or the operator, or the management company? And you're thinking, like, maybe even how do you raise capital in a market like this where everybody's raising capital? And how can you pitch investors and accelerate that trust in these moments? And many people, in some cases, it's really, how do I fix the talent problem? Right? How can I find people? And I want to start there, and we'll come back to those other things because it's going to lay some context to what we're talking about. Now, speaking about how do you find talent and how do you find people that, to fill these positions, to operate these properties and take care of real estate, I want you to think about something differently for just a moment. Children, as we grow up, and you've all been through school and through the process, they don't dream about being property managers for obvious reasons, right? What they dream about is being police officers and firefighters and baseball players. They dream about being basketball players, watching NBA finals, school teachers. And they do this because they see those jobs in action. Make sense? They're on TV. They're getting the highlight reels. They're special speakers at their events. Police show up to schools, all of these things. Those are the jobs that they first see, right, on TV. We all grew up in a TV generation. All of those jobs were presented on TV in movies. So the teachers are really closest to it. In fact, literally the students for 12 years are in the work environment of the teachers, right? So they have exposure to what it's like being a teacher and all those things. So today, everybody has a TV in their pocket. And, what are we doing to reach people about the things that we're doing? So if we have a talent problem, and I know a lot of us do, we need to look at talent in terms of a marketplace, like a job market, and we need to look at it like buyers and sellers, right? We are very good at understanding the supply and demand fundamentals of real estate markets, but really the job market is the same thing. There's demand, buyers and sellers. Well, if the candidates are the buyers, so to speak, right, and the employers are the sellers, a lot of people are really good at selling investments, deals, transactions, talking about properties, how people should move into the properties, getting emotionally engaged to those properties, telling that brand story, but not for their company. And that really matters when you're raising capital. And as a seller, if you submit an LOI and they're looking at one and they're looking at the other, and they go and look into you, and the seller's deciding which offer to accept over the next one, these assets need to be in place. So there is a big shift in the talent space in demand. In fact, I bet you in your career, and I know mine, it's probably been a while since you've been looking for a job. And the people that are looking for jobs now are doing it in an entirely different way than we did. So demand is different, and also technology and the process is different, how you reach people. You see, And just like investors, like we've been trained that the employers are the ones choosing when you're hiring somebody. And I bet you can kind of feel that presupposition about even how you post the job ads. The job ads are very boring. They're not ads, they're job descriptions. HR writes how much they can lift, but like we need to sell. Demand has shifted. Well, right now, people, they want to work on winning teams. Same thing with investors. They want to know that you're winning. They want to work for people that are doing great things. Investors, raising capital, management companies, they want to have momentum about, they made a decision to be with this group and they're going places. They've got stuff happening. They're doing interesting things. This is true for lenders, LP investors. They want to feel safe about taking a chance on you. And so when you have these assets in place, super helpful. And again, next generation leaders, they want to work for companies that are not only doing well financially, buying a lot of stuff, but they want to work for companies that are making an impact on the world and that they're building healthy organizations. The world of work is shifting in terms of the work expectations. If you even come to the office, what is the 40-hour work week right now is being challenged. Does it take 40 hours? Everything is being looked at in different ways. So financial goals, even you look at public companies in the stock market, there are people that are investing specifically.
It's top there. Use that top on the thingy on the heater.
There are people that are looking specifically for investments that are doing great things in the environment, not just like you're creating a happy place to work, right? So it's no longer just the numbers. It's no longer just the return. So what we do is when we, I didn't talk a lot about our brand, but we do research nationally on the best places to work in multifamily. And you see this with these forward-looking companies building healthy organizations. Investors are looking at this list because they know that it's a leading indicator that if somebody can build a healthy organization, collect the right people, get them working effectively so they show up for the resident, then they're going to get their yield. And when you look at these profiles, they're doing some fun and interesting things for the people within the company. And those things are out there for people to discover. And so when investors and capital partners are looking at that stuff, that matters. So how do you find people without spending a fortune on ads and recruiting? And you can't even, how do you find investors that way, right? How do you find capital partners without just running around and chasing deals and chasing leads? One of the things that I can tell you is looking at what you've already done, you have already collected some properties maybe, or maybe a track record of deals, and you have these assets that other companies don't have. You have these beautiful properties, and some also, by the way, not so beautiful, right? But a pool view in many cases is better than a cubicle view. And maybe you're outside. We have these real assets that you can touch and feel for investors and employees. So we have these sort of cool work environments and companies doing really interesting things and making an impact. We just need to showcase that and show everybody how awesome it is to be involved with us, to work, to be investing, telling the people that already gave you money, like what you're doing to execute, how this is working out, and how you think about the business.
Okay.
Get all of that into the pocket, their TV in the pocket. They have a TV literally in their pocket. It's how we grew up. These things are changed. So someone is frustrated right now, not having the right deal, not having the right partnership, not having passive income, not having the right job, and they're in a cubicle, frustrated somewhere, or stuck somewhere. And when they see your story come across the feed, if it's a post or an Instagram or it's on LinkedIn, wherever it is, they may just follow and check out what you're working on. Now, I'm going to tell you, I mentioned the TV generation. Hallmark's brilliant at this. They make working at an ad agency or a bakery shop or an interior designer, they make it seem like this is the most desirable thing to work for. I'll tell you, these jobs are also stressful. Event planners, it's the most stressful thing. They make it look like amazing on Hallmark Channel. And they are basically painting a picture of something. There are young people right now that are growing up that want to go to New York and work in an ad agency because of these things that are happening that they're seeing. The messages are coming to them. You know, we have those messages around rent control and all these things that owners and operators are bad and always for profit only. And that could be the farthest thing from the truth, the people I spend time with. They really care about their residents and the impact they want to make, but the media that we don't have control over crafts a different story. Look at it from children's books to every movie. It's just a big bad operator plowing the land and putting up condos. You know, the other day I was listening to a podcast. There was a woman talking about how she went from legal relations or legal work, I guess, and she went to she jumped to a whole other industry. And the podcast host was like, how did you move from legal, law, having judicial conversations to a PR firm, advertising? And she said she looked around, she was frustrated with what she was doing, dealing with just law and problems. And she saw some things on the TV in the pocket. And she's like, that looks like fun, what my friend's doing. Her job looks interesting. And the rest is history. She's now in advertising and PR and having a great time. So that happened because that person that was posting those stories about what it's like to work there. I'm looking at a deal today. One of the great things I get to do is I get to travel and look at these deals. And I spend time with community leaders. And I drop in, and when I buy these apartments, I make them better. And like, we got to tell those stories. And when you're doing that, you're attracting investors that are like, I want someone who thinks like that. So the problem is people are literally looking at companies, and investors are looking at companies, but there's not any, the greatness is not there. There's no inside look at what you're doing. And if you just go back to the recruiting problem I said, and you're trying to find the right person, can you really assess if someone is the right person in one job interview? Maybe these last 30, 40 minutes. I don't know that you can, but I know that's how we do it. So if the investment firm or the company, management company, wherever you are, if you're not the one choosing anymore, the employees and the candidates are choosing, they're choosing where they want to work because they have choices, they don't need the jobs, then how does the candidate essentially get an inside look at what it's like to work at your company? Right now, you can't. That's why people come in and they go somewhere else. That's what we need to start doing, is telling the world about how your company thinks, what you believe in. Give people that inside look at what it's like to work here, what it's like to be an investor, how you think about deals. And I bet you can sit there and think, like, when you're in those board meetings talking about making decisions for the best interests of that investment property so you can serve your LP investors in the highest way, I bet you there's people that don't know how much you care. And if you did, you would have faster access to capital, and you'd be able to choose the investors instead of needing investors. So you want anybody, anywhere, anytime, at scale, to be able to learn about how you think and how those executive leaders think. As a project, go after this meeting, go to any management company, any investment firm, and look at their websites. Go to leadership and bio. It's all the same. Everything's the same. There's a photo and there's a long bio, like a LinkedIn bio, right? Finding people to work for your company and finding investors or getting an asset manager to say yes to the management company because you want to grow and scale your management company, it's all the same. So I'm asking you, like, what are we doing to get visibility, and what are we doing to tell the story about our awesomeness so that people can get an inside look at how we run and operate our business, because if they knew that, they would probably place capital with you. They would hire you as a management company. They'd want you to be on your, work on your teams. You'd be getting emails about it. I aspire to work for your group someday. I don't know when or whatever. And it's not going to come from a job ad. It's going to come from an email. And then these investors, they start to align with you on your approaches. And good marketing pushes people away as much as it attracts. And so now you're getting people that are requesting meetings for you. They're calling you, asking you, hey, can we get a meeting for you? That conversation's a little different. Now you're in that meeting that they requested, and they're aligned because they liked how you approach due diligence or all of these things. And now you're in that meeting. It's a very different meeting. You don't have to do all that positioning stuff and like, tell me why I should hire you as a management company stuff. So when they're in that, maybe it's a Zoom meeting right now. It used to be meetings, right? Could be Zoom. They feel like they understand you by the time they're on the call with you. It allows for you to convert better in those conversations instead of like trying to convince. And what we're finding is you're accelerating those opportunities and the time to get to them. So I want to stop there. I want you to think about all of that in context as we move into Q&A. And everything that we're talking about here, I want it to feel like a perspective over to the problems and challenges that I know a lot of you submitted on your way into this meeting, like raising capital or getting third-party management accounts, all the things that we needed to grow and scale our products, our services, all these things. Having context over what I just said, I want you guys to, if you've got questions, raise your hands. I know we've got some from you, but I'd like to turn it over to Jim, and we'll start there, and we'll go from there. So thank you.
Hey, Patrick. Yeah, I don't see anybody raising their hand yet. I do have some questions ready to go. So the first one is, how do I get sellers to accept my offers?
Well, write good offers. No, just kidding. There's a lot to that, obviously, right? I mean, I think a lot of people in the room would agree to that. It relates a lot to a lot of people think about the process and the price and the transactional things. But I always think about the positioning that goes in front. Like by the time they get the offer, what else do they know and what else have they heard, right? And so that's where all this groundswell of activity, if they're seeing you have momentum activities, or they're seeing you in the news, or seeing transactions, or seeing thought leadership out there, or your expertise, then there's a little bit more acceptance from brokerage community and the seller community to know they want confidence that you're going to transact, right? So all of the trust that needs to happen before that paper is submitted or the email is submitted, I think plays out. And, I think about it as you're always going to compete on transaction and how you underwrite and your due diligence items and all those things. And I don't want to talk, you guys know that better than anybody. But I think what's happening is a lot of people miss is what happens after that email is opened. Where do they go to find out who submitted this offer? What are they going to find, right? And what image do they have about working with you, right? I think that's important. I don't know if a lot of people factor that, but I know that matters in anything that you're doing. So I think that's expanding the view of when that positioning is accomplished. Starts before you submit the offer, and then and months in many cases, and then it's the offer, and then it's what are they going to find once they figure out who submitted the offer. And I'm open to any follow-up to those questions and statements as well, too, guys.
I have a follow-up question, if I may. I'm Greg Moyer in Chicago, and I'm an apartment investor and developer, 1,000 units, and constantly doing deals. We're competing oftentimes on larger deals than we have in the past. And, we try to position ourselves where upfront due diligence is effective, relationships with the brokers is important. However, we may be the one that comes in with $1 million hard or $500,000 hard on a contract, and we know how to position ourselves appropriate. But we're competing with sometimes some big national players, which may or may not have the same level of commitment, due diligence, but we're a little bit of an unknown entity, and you've got, I'm not going to name names, but who national developers and players that I'm competing with. And we find it challenging. So any advice on that other than, a lot of hard earnest money and, clean offers and ability to show the capital, which sometimes is difficult because it's not just sitting in an account. It comes from investors and banks and different sources.
Yeah, I think that's a great, Greg, what area are you from? What region?
We're in the Midwest, but we're developing in various parts of the country. But we always have about 1,000 units under construction.
Well, congrats on that.
Guys that have 5,000 units under construction that are household names.
That is awesome. I mean, that's a great size portfolio. I mean, I know that there's a lot of focus on you got to have 40,000 units and 20,000 units, and I mean 1,000 units is an amazing and substantial portfolio if you think about it. And I think, to me, the competitive advantage is like like anything in the world, right? Like a company exists to differentiate from the other one, right? And so to me, I'm going to lean into the idea around like, I'm your principal to principal on this. I don't do every transaction, but the ones I do, I'm very careful about. And, I know that we have certainty of close and, you're good at all that in terms of the conversation. But I think sometimes there's a lot of frustration because there are people losing deals to people that are paying probably far too much for these deals. And this could be a gift in many cases it's not necessarily the deals you are trying to buy, but the deals you didn't buy. And so I think it's really leveraging to why are you different? You're going to give it the attention, right? And this is, you've built 1,000 unit portfolio. You could have 7,500, but you have 1,000 for a reason because we're really careful about the transactions, and give it to where like you're personally going to be involved and take it, end to end and really sort of caretake that process. I think that's important because a lot of the big operations, they're large, right? And you can kind of get lost in the mix. And I know it's hard because sellers are like, well, top dollar's over here, and they're looking at certainty and close and things like that. So to me, there's never been a better time to strengthen and compete with the large operators because before you didn't have access to them like we do. And I mentioned the TV in the pocket. So I would be doing content, and it depends on your DNA. You can work with like us, and we can extract your knowledge. You don't have to be a public speaker or anything like that, but I think it's like give people the behind the scenes of your operations. Like I said in the opening remarks, let them see you doing transactions. Let them see you closing on transactions. Let them see you taking care of your real estate investors so that they don't look at it like, well, this group has 20,000, you have 1,000. They may prefer a smaller group. But you asked the question because I know it is a challenge, and I don't necessarily have all the answers, but I think that at some point, the reason why they don't spend time with every person in those big operations, they just go online and they see all the stuff. I would look at your portfolio and what that presence looks, not for the properties, but from your business brand. I think I'd beef that up if you want to have a little bit more leverage there. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thanks for your question, Greg. Appreciate you. And congrats again on 1,000 units.
Well, I mean, we constantly, we have 1,000 units kind of going at a time, sell some, refinance and keep. And it's just, it's an interest. It's tricky out there because everything, very, very hard to go find direct deals. And we end up, getting in competitions on a lot of these transactions. And there's people that'll work for lower returns and higher prices and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's a little harder to differentiate. And it's track record and ability to close and all the stuff you said. So
Are you
how
are you
we
doing
get,
anything?
I guess the question, the reason I chimed in on this call today was, how do we do a better job of getting our brand out there? If you ask our investors, we probably have 150 unique investors. We've raised several $100 million of equity over. We're old guys. We've done a lot of deals, and we know we take care of our investors really well. Our investors know we take care of them. That's why they come back almost the same investors in every deal. But to grow, we need more of those guys. We can, if we're doing right now, we're raising $45 million. Well, if your average investor is only 200 grand, that's a lot of investors for $45 million. So, so that's challenging. We're for the first time putting our toe into kind of the quasi-institutional family office market and actually hiring a fundraiser. Because for us to scale, and this call is about scaling multifamily, we need more capital. The lenders don't like, no, I hope there's no crowd. There probably is crowdfunding guys on the phone, but, it's very, very challenging for the loan documents with some of the lenders to deal with crowdfunding. So, so that's kind of what was interesting to us. And I know our investors, but if we had them on here, they would sing our praises because we're diligent and we care and our money is pari passu with them. And, and we don't sleep until we, make sure that our pro formas are hit and their money's taken care of. And there's always problems, but we take care of them. So I think some of it, and what you talked about earlier, was the messaging. So
Yeah, let me ask you this. So how many have 200 investors already?
150-ish.
150. Okay, so I would
But
look.
this is over 20 years. I mean, I'm an old guy.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. Awesome job. And look, what I would do, I would look at. They've already said yes, right? Those are the equity.
Multiple times, many of them.
The equity ones are saying yes. Of course, you got to get the sellers to say yes so you can get the capital placed. But
it's two different discussions. Right?
It is. But here's the thing. I think that you could look at those investors that have said yes and figure out, like, spend time with them, even if you just do a one-on-one Zoom with them, and maybe even if you record it. It's like, well, tell me, are we making an impact, together? You've been funding deals for 8 years now. Like, what's that been? How's that impact been for you? And try and get, even if you take those into, like, they say something remarkable in flow state, like, you don't structure it. You start thinking about questions that people are coming up against right now, like, who are you? What's your track record? All those things. And when you ask your current investors who have already said yes to those things, like the impact that you're making, then in their answers, it knocks down an objection somebody else has before they do business with you, right? And so if you've got quotes like, investor, love working with this team, man, they really understand long-term wealth creation, their deals always underwrite, like, whatever those statements that come out of spending time, then you can start making those visible to the world. And again, that's an easy way to just extract credibility from things you've already done. This isn't
Great
about.
suggestion. I mean, our 150 investors, sure, there's some, repeat, pretty sophisticated real estate guys that are in there. A lot of the brokers that are in the markets that you guys all know are investors with us because of that. But getting that messaging out, the guy that has been on 8 deals with us and has had, an average of a 20 IRR in his investments, and he's got his capital back 2 or 3 times already. That guy sings our praises, but nobody knows that. You don't know that. Right?
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So get a testimonial or get a video or a quote for him and get it on LinkedIn and get it on our website. I think that's a wonderful suggestion.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, look, how you structure everything. Always, like, you got to be really careful and all the regulations and how you raise money and all that stuff. But run that stuff by your teams. But what I'm saying is, if you can extract that value, then it strengthens the credibility when you're going to an offer and you're spending time with the broker, and they realize, like, look, not everybody should be the biggest company, and you're just this really great investor that made the decision to choose this lane, and it establishes trust. So thank you again for your question and response there.
All right, looks like we got one more from a question from Ross. Ross, go ahead and unmute and fire away.
Yeah, hi guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
I'm just
Ross, good
checking
to
this
see
mic.
you.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. So I'm a bit further away. I'm over in Scotland, so you might recognise the accent. I actually just wanted to touch slightly on Greg's point. I work with quite a lot of family offices raising capital for more larger developments worldwide, and it really just I want to kind of say to him that reaching out to the likes of family offices is a really good place for him to start, both for obviously the scaling he's trying to do, but to put himself in that position where he can go and compete against these big guys. When you've got a really good family office behind you, one that will work with you, they can create some huge facilities behind you that will really allow you to get out there and compete with these guys. So definitely that, and also even going back to these guys in general, whether you're putting yourself out to family offices or the public in general, is having something more about your brand than just building. What does your company do off the back of that? What does it do with the money? Do you invest it anywhere else? Do you do any impact funding, etc.? That's a huge thing just now. And also, if the family offices love if you're innovative in any way, with the style of buildings that you're doing. Are you looking outside the box at all? So that's just a huge thing for them if he's looking to step into that space.
I love it. Awesome comments, Ross, on that. I really do appreciate you sharing those thoughts. By the way, guys, there's a Facebook group where all of us can gather. If you go to Facebook, it's called Scaling Multifamily Brands. And this would be a great time, Greg, for you to meet Ross. Maybe there's a family office connection there, or some continued value that can be exchanged. And technically, Greg, I mean, just showing up today, it looks like can stimulate some of those relationships as you move forward. But I know family offices again are definitely thinking more long term about things.
And we have family offices that invest with us, for 15 years, and it's expanding, so just expanding that footprint. And I appreciate Ross's comments, and certainly, Ross, if you've got some ideas, I'd love to connect with you and go through our portfolio and our track record and our relationships. Which you have a relationship with one family office, it tends to lead to another, as you know.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of scaling, and we have staffed up. And you had the conversation about staffing. We've got some very, very good members of this team that are deep in knowledge, and we have great sites and we have good projects. And to go to our next level, we're trying to get to about, we're trying to really deliver 1,000 units a year. So we'd like to get to 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 units over the next 5 or 6 years. And we have a plan. We really do have a plan. It's not communicated to anybody. It's deal by deal. We show up, we go out to our friends and family, we raise the money, we go to the banks, or we go to a mezz fund, and we're institutionally qualified. We've gotten finance, we've gotten equity from family offices to Heitman to many of the banks, you name it. We've done deals with, but we want to expand, and that's and we're not sure what exactly the right way is. So if anybody on this call, and I'll put a commercial out there, feel free to, I don't know how to get to you guys, but I'll go on the Facebook page or whatever, open to ideas. So thank you. And thanks for the platform.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on,
Yep.
Greg. And again, Ross, for your question. Awesome comments.
Yep. Yeah, no, just to add to that again, getting there's family offices and there's kind of family offices, and some of the ones that we'll work with, they start at so in dollars, it would be like the smallest facility they'll create. It's about 200 million, but they want everything. They want the debt and the equity, so they want the full bit, so that they'll get first charge. So I mean, there's ones out there that are designed specifically around supplying that kind of facility that you're looking for. So, yep, reach out. You can get me on LinkedIn, just Ross Benson, or wherever, or through the Facebook page, or wherever you need. So just to kind of follow on to add my question. So because of the space that I work in with family offices and things like that, we also work in kind of bank grade investments that are really predominantly focused on the family offices, but they also now allow ways to get in at much smaller levels. But due to the returns that are capable within these things, and they still come with full insurance, so actually the capital is really secure within it as well. I've got a goal to reach out to a lot of smaller companies, whether that's developers or companies themselves that are sitting on cash, not doing anything for them, to really kind of drive their returns as well. So it's a new space for me. Although I'm used to dealing with the family offices and things, I'm trying to create this, to see how we can get out there and maybe change the mindsets of some companies about what they're actually doing with their own cash and how they can leverage that to make it work a lot harder for them. And then sometimes with the developers, effectively self-fund by creating enough return through their own cash. So I don't know if that's something you can maybe comment on or maybe have ideas on.
Yeah, well, I think you're going back to an educated buyer, right? So a more informed buyer is there. People are thinking about things right now, and they're not at the point where they're ready for a call or a conversation with you around the thing. And so if you can think about whatever it is, if you're trying to get people to think differently or understand a new opportunity or take a different direction, think about, who you want to serve, what problems do they have, what opportunities they want to create, and create content that either knocks down those problems and shows them a better path, right? Or gets them the objective they want, and your product kind of comes along the way, or your offer comes along the way. So I think, again, just understanding that the more complex the thing is, if it's a tax structure or requires, complicated things, or someone doesn't already understand it, just estimate that it's going to take more time to transfer that knowledge. And so just be patient, consistent, and have high frequency. And then own the category, because of all those things being hard and difficult to educate and attract in the ideal customer, everyone else is going to retreat and give up on it. So that's where you sort of rise above.
Yeah, and I think it's just when it comes to, you touched on earlier, with it being investments, you have to be very careful about what you promote, what you say, how you put it across, especially on social media, or you'll find yourself shut down quite quickly.
Yeah, so that's why, for example, you don't have to ask for anything. You just show, hey, I'm here at this property. What are they doing? Like, what's going on there? You're just showing your operations, right? So yeah, you always want to make sure, again, I'm not an attorney and I don't do any financial or legal advice. So you always want to make sure that the things you do, what those opportunities are and the risks that are there. But when you're talking about your teams, and gosh, we're in a meeting today, it's a picture of your team, and you're just talking about your operations and your business, then you may get a private message and a curiosity going out there. So, but think about education in a deeper way.
Yeah. No, ideal. Thanks.
And when you're an expert, it's easier to sell, or do things. All right, Jim. What do we have next? Anybody else?
Yeah. Hey, Patrick. Jonathan's got his hand raised. Got a question. So go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, Jim.
All right.
Hey, Patrick. Can you hear me?
Good to see you. How are you?
Yeah. I'm fine. How are you?
Very good. Very good. What's your question there?
Okay, so I'm a founder currently in Africa, and I have a tech startup. So I don't know how to get the perfect family offices or investors, or because here in Africa we don't have the same opportunities to access capital, especially as an early stage when you still have an MVP or a beta product launched. So my product is launched, and we're creating like an Uber service for fulfillment, last mile deliveries. And we have our paying customers. We have initial traction. We've launched, so we're making sales. But we're looking for pre-seed investors and angels.
So you're talking MVP. This is a software or technology? If I heard you correctly.
Yes. It's a mobile app.
So again, everything we talked about in the beginning about raising capital for an investment or for a prop tech or anything really comes down to Again, like even employees, people want to be on winning teams. So people want to invest with Tesla right now, right? Because they're going somewhere, right? So your ability to tell that story far in advance than when you need the thing or the investment, you want to, and I mentioned in an earlier show, a lot of times we're trying to pursue things. And Jim Rohn said something, I think, let me try not to hack this quote, but he said, success is not something that we pursue. What we pursue eludes us. Success is an outcome of the person we become. And what that means is the force that we're going after, investors or deals or anything really, if it was a feather and you were pushing after it, the force of the pursuit sometimes pushes it away. And that's why even in a sales meeting, if I'm in a sales presentation and I'm like coming at them strong, they're kind of doing their buyer thing, right? And so it's the same with investors. And so you got to think about all the things that need to go before you're having those conversations so that, again, I don't do the like what your pitch deck should look like and where to find them and stuff like that. But if you're spending time in the right places, talking about with the people that your product solves the problems for, and you're asking them questions like, hey, I would love, I'm working on this thing. Most people want to be helpful. I'm working on this thing. It's going to make this problem go away. It's going to make renting easier, or it's going to allow you to collect rent faster. Would you jump on a call? And you're not there to sell or get an investment. You're trying to understand the problem that your product solves. And naturally, maybe there's something there, but I think it relates to the pursuit sometimes is like give up the pursuit and go for, the bigger outside industry stuff. Did that make any sense? It's hard for me to fully understand your question in the audio, so I want to make sure I didn't miss on that. But
Yeah, it does make sense. As trying to solve a problem, you might, run into an investor. That's what I understood.
very good. Well, I appreciate you showing up and asking the question. Thank you for that.
You're welcome, Patrick.
All right. Well, let's see. I don't see any more hands up. So let's go with another question I've got on my list. It's how do we get investors confident with my company or team?
That takes time. And what is confidence really, right? Confidence is an outcome to capabilities. Confidence doesn't come right before that. And so a lot of people, as they're hiring management companies or even doing investments, we don't always know what happened before that, what experience they went through. So their guard might be up and like, I'm never going to do that again. I'm not going to hire this group or these types of things or invest passively. So you always want to get into the hearts and minds of the people that are consuming your content or looking at your website or answering your emails, all of those things. And again, it goes back to when they become confident when they can see it. When you see a police officer, the uniform is what they're seeing. They haven't even met the person, but with that comes trust, authority, and honestly, I don't even know fighters, same thing, that they're there to rescue, they're doing these things. So they're a lab coat at a doctor, right? What comes with that when someone walks in, it accelerates them into, they're there to help me, that they're educated, that they pass some tests, they know what they're doing, they're in this hospital. The framing, all of that is how you get people to trust you in your company. The good news is, and again, like I said before, there's never been a better time to create all of those assets, right? And a lot of people just make websites and they do press releases, but people don't want to know things. They don't want information. They want their problem to go away. And when you can confidently state on your website, in your communications, show people an inside look at your company and directly knock down the obstacles that are in their mind that they're not telling you about. Are they good enough? Will they do what they say? Am I going to get to my return? Will the product work? Whatever that is, start thinking about like, where are people in the conversations that you're having with these either investors or operators if you're selling them a product? Where are they leaning in like, that's interesting? And where are they pushing back and questioning? If they're pushing back, those are opportunities to start creating content to knock those things down online, in LinkedIn, in emails, wherever that is, so that by the time the next person comes in, they've consumed that stuff. And the reason why they're calling you and spending time with you is because you've dealt with those things that are sometimes easier to deal with in the public area than in a meeting. Because in a meeting, they're just thinking they're just going to tell them whatever you want to hear. But if they see something on your website that says, here's how we do due diligence, and maybe their last property they bought didn't go well because they missed a lot of things. But now you've got this article or this checklist or this interview with your CFO and your COO and your regional operator and VP of constructions there, and you're interviewing, you're talking about like, here's how we look at deals when we go in. You're giving them an inside look at how you think, what you think about, and now you're essentially manufacturing trust online without a meeting, outside of sales conversations. So now when they're in a call with you or get that email, you don't have to do that in a perfect world. So I think, again, it goes back to, we try and create that trust only in meetings. And you can't rush that process. So you extract everything that you would do in a meeting because you've done it. You have people that trust you. And you get that out where people can see it in like binge-worthy ways like Netflix. I would never watch 40-hour movie, but if you look at a series of certain series, you add it up. It's like 20 minutes here, 20 minutes here. And it's like, give them that stuff that they need, but don't make it all about you. Make it all about their problem. How an asset manager needs to hire a third-party manager. Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Now you've educated them. You've made them a little bit smarter. You're perceived as an expert or more knowledgeable. And that makes sales simpler and easier and faster. Long-winded question or answer, but I hope that was helpful. Anybody have
a lot
any
of good
thoughts
points
on
in
that?
there. Let's see.
Yes.
I've got another
go
question.
ahead.
Anybody else had a question?
Well, let me add to that,
Great.
Tim, what he was talking about. My name is Sherman Jett. I own a national exterior door sealing company, but we're just going to talk about what Patrick just said. When I started this company back in 2010, I designed an exterior door seal that will seal a door for 20 years. Now, number one, I'm a minority, a Black minority getting into the weather stripping business, trying to tell someone who has 1,000 doors that my product would sustainably seal their doors for 10 or 15 years. And I'm sitting in a meeting telling them this, and they're looking at me saying, really? I don't have time for you to waste my time explaining to me that you have something that National Guard and PIMCO, who are the big boys in the world, who I'm currently buying my product from, you're going to outperform them. So what I did, I stopped talking. I created animated videos and I put them on my website and I sent it to them in emails, and I got their attention. So I started out in the housing authority industry. 2 years later, I was doing it nationally. Then, okay, here come these major universities who have dorm rooms and 20 and 30,000 doors at their school. And I'm telling them, I can reduce your man hours. I can reduce your pest control. I can reduce the number of doors that you will replace because I can seal a door inch off the doorstop. Guys, people are looking at me like I'm crazy. So by sending them to my website and them looking at the videos and giving them free product, that's what got me to skyrocket in door seals. Because who are you? You know, and door seals have been an issue for 40 years. Everyone in this on this Zoom know a front door or back door is an issue at their home or prior to them owning their last home. So I get it, and that's what I had to do. I had to stop talking and start showing them their problems and how we solve them. So Patrick, you're absolutely correct.
Well, thank you for the story, by the way, and awesome job on all of that. And I want to key into a few things that are amazing about that process. Is number one, that you observed that there was a better way. Like that's the first step, right? Like there's got to be a better way to this, and actually taking the action because that's innovation. It's like we can learn and learn, but when you just do the thing, and you're like, that worked. Let's try that a little differently. Like, let's make the video shorter. Or I'm sure you went through all these kind of fun things. And it's just getting out there and doing something. And I liked what you took friction out of the buying process and you educated the buyer without the risk of needing to commit to a meeting and feel like you're in a sales conversation. Because I said in an earlier show that people are pretty nice sometimes and they don't want to have to say no, you know? And so that's why sometimes you don't even get the meeting. And then I loved the language and the message because nobody talks about the message. Is you mentioned you found some money. So you're speaking their language. You're talking about, listen, this is what's in it for you. I'm going to reduce, you mentioned a few things like find the money, save the money, time and payroll, things like that. And so in their mind, you're making the customer the hero because they're like, okay, I'm going to make this buying decision and I have the opportunity to to find something. So awesome job on that. Thank you for the comment and appreciate you showing up.
All right. Anyone else? All right. I've got another question here. How do I raise capital without pitching investors?
How do I raise capital without pitching investors? Well, number one, I mentioned the feather story. If you're doing deals, then strong investors might find you, right? So taking and making known the transactions that you're going after, making others know, not just the press release, because it's just people want to read, they want to watch. We just heard from Sherman that people show and tell back in school mattered, so he got through for the show and tell. So they want to read, they want to watch, and in many cases listen, like the podcast stuff, right? So it's getting that out there in ways that you believe your investor wants to hear it. They may not want to do the meeting. Maybe they're getting a lot of meetings. And so that's where it's, again, getting it out on online, showing the deals that you're doing, and not just like, hey, do you want to invest in this deal? And here's the IRR, and here's the cash flow, and here's the multiple, and all the things that everyone else does. Maybe just show the process of I'm going on a due diligence trip. I'm thinking about buying a property in Ohio, and I'm in Ohio. I'm on the plane. Here's what I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm going to look for. When I look for this deal, this is kind of how I tackle things. So again, it doesn't have to. You don't have to be a public speaker or a social media expert, but you can just write those things on LinkedIn, free. You have access to the media now, and let those things be known to people. And I think what ends up happening is, because you're also restricted by asking for those things in a public forum, right? So you don't want to get in trouble for all that stuff. So you again, going back to if the company website has all of these things organized in such a way that they know that you're working on these investment objectives and you're very specific, like it's not just like I'm buying an apartment, it's like how many units, the operating style of the property, it's a reposition, it's a stabilize, it's a lease up. All of the strategy stuff has to come out. So then when they see that something's a fit, they're looking to place their capital too. and they reach out to you. So I think without pitching, that would be kind of how I would do it. I get it all the time, and it's because of the things that we share. It's like, hey, we've got this going on. Are you interested in that? Because someone knows, like, okay, this is the city that we're in, and these are the things that we care about. And so you want to think about like not pursuing to pitch them, but create the content that invites them to ask you if they can invest. And sometimes, like we mentioned earlier with Greg about interviewing investors, there's things that you can do with what's already been created that can facilitate that as well. Thank you, Jim.
Oh, my pleasure. Nolan asked a question.
Now,
let's see, Nolan, if you raise your hand,
Nolan,
that,
yes.
we can get you. There we go. Go ahead and ask your question, Nolan.
So we're coming up around an hour into the show. I'm happy to keep going. I want to make sure you guys are getting impact, and this is useful. Anybody, show of hands, is this useful at all to you guys? Yep. Thank you, Ryan. I see. Yep, there we go. All right, Jim. Yeah, let's go to. I'm sorry, I don't see Nolan. And let's
okay,
see.
Nolan, if you raise your hand, we'll get you on next. I've got another question here.
Thank you, Anthony.
How do I get acquisitions that I want to a point where they're calling me?
How do I get acquisitions to where they're calling you?
Yeah.
Acquisitions to they're calling you. You mean the deal flow?
Yeah. The companies that have acquisitions that I want to that are in my particular envelope, the deals that I want. How do I get those people to call me?
I think it's the same. Again, we're talking about like, how does anything ever happen any other way, right? You're in some kind of connection, you get a lead in some way or a new friendship or an introduction, and then you're maybe in a coffee meeting, and then it's like, come to the office, meet my team. There's these things that happen in the real world, and now those things can happen online. I think it's really goes back to the same things we've talked about here today, is giving people access to what you're looking for, what a victory looks like to you, what you don't want, like a compatibility kind of thing. Like, here's who we help, here's who we don't help. And I think people appreciate that focus. So again, it goes back to some of the things that we talked about, I think, today, just simulating that trust, even though people aren't asking for meetings. And then when that content is out there, then you have something to send them that they can consume without you there.
Right. So, okay. I've got one more here. How do I get the right equity partners who already know my business model to call me? Kind of similar.
Yeah, I think that's exactly similar. I mean, you've got, when they land on your content, a lot of people, because they're trying to get trusted and get over the skepticism and all of the questioning that people are, they're going to transact. It's a cautious move, right? So I think you got to start most people, when you go to these investment firms and syndications, it all looks the same. Think of the deals; they all look the same. The offering memorandums look the same. They talk about the same deal points. And so when you cut through the noise of that, you talk about the investor, right? So in a situation like that, you got to first get clear about the type of investor you really want to work with. And the best way to do that is look at your best investors now. The ones that, if you had 10 more of them or 20 more of them, it would change your world. And what I mean by that is they're lovely to work with, right? They do the things that they say they do. I mean, you could look at this as customers in technology. Like, they're not beating you up on price. They're using your product. They're giving you the feedback. They're nice to you. They return calls. Like the dream client. First, figure that out. And when you know that, then you have to ask, like, okay, if this is my dream client, what would a dream client want in an investment or an investment manager or an asset manager or a property manager? And then simply make sure that you have those things in place. So you may have already attracted the ideal investor, but the things that they want are not in place, so they don't see that, and they're not going to challenge you on it. They just move on. And so when you're presenting information to them, when you can make it all about them, all about what they want, all about how they get it, and all about who you're helping, like that, then it's sort of a natural thing. And so that's what I would be thinking about is not pursuing it, it's just attracting it and finding out what they want to do and putting that information available for them to consume when you're not around, right? Or before they meet with you. Make sense?
Yeah. Here's another one. Let's see. This one's kind of different. What are the opportunities, if any, evolving from COVID that can make raising capital easier?
Well, I'll tell you right now, a lot of what we talked about today, but most people, here's how it works. You get a job, you learn the business, maybe you go out on your own and you're an investor, whatever it is, but you're pretty good at what you're doing. And by the way, most people that are on this call probably are winning pretty significantly. And so that means our biggest challenge in the marketplace is people are cashing $1 million checks. So success is their biggest challenge. And how they got that success is someone gave them an opportunity, they followed somebody else around, they learned it, they went up the business, or they went and got the MBA, or however they did it, but they learned, someone else told them, here's how I do it, go do it this way, and they got results that way. And so now they're teaching others, like, you need to go to a golf tournament, you need to join a trade association, you need to take people to steak dinners, you need to do this, and that has worked. But most people that have built all the things that you see around you did the same old strategies in a world that doesn't exist anymore. So to me, this is a real opportunity to say, you have now a media company, you're a media company, you're not a syndicator. What you need to tell the media is how you put deals together and how you take care of your investors and how you build a great team and how you look at deals, all of those things. So with COVID, this is a tremendous opportunity to lean into that, because everybody else is going to wait for the golf tournament. They're going to wait for the event, the conference, all that stuff. Or they're going to wait for the meeting. And here you are with frequency, building trust, attracting the investor, and by the way, this is how everything else is done online. And it's working. I know a lot of people are getting success this way. So I think that's what I would be doing, leaning into. It's not that the world is different because of COVID. It's just that everything shifted, not just the way that we meet with people and the virus and the health concerns. It's that there's a whole new model of how people spend their time at work. Do they even need to go to work anymore? How are they working? How they get their information? All that's shifted. So when you think about, and I mentioned this last show, when you think about the evolution of anything, people don't know what's next, so they have to identify it as what's been. Think about events. They call them virtual events. It's just an event. It's only virtual because you're thinking about an event that can't happen in person, and you're like, oh, how do I describe that? So I call it a virtual event. We did it with phones. There was cordless phones. We did it with movies, motion pictures. It's happening all around us. Self-driving cars. At some point, it's going to be a vehicle. We don't know how to identify the thing that's next unless we reference the old. And I'm saying get rid of the old. And even if you dominate the new way of communicating and establishing trust and selling at scale, then even if you go and do those things, they're more impactful. When you go to the event, they know all this about you. When you go to the meeting, they've had some opportunity to know a little bit about you before you get there. And that makes those conversations far more valuable because you're not convincing, you're asking them, is this somebody I can really help? Is this a company that I can really get behind? And will I enjoy working with them?
All right, here got another one. This one's good. How do I get accurate data on business and investment owners to talk to?
Accurate data on business and investment owners to talk to. Well, that's a great question. You can send me an email. I know you got on here from my email. Send me an email. There are some things that you can license, I think, not from us, that might help with that. And then, yeah, I don't know that I have an answer to that one. Maybe brokers, property managers. When you develop relationships, if you're an investor with property managers, they're always looking to create value. Sometimes they have this data, but it's a challenge that you're not the only one with, I think, and I can certainly appreciate it. So I think, yeah, sending me an email, happy to make introductions, but and I will say this, sometimes there are people that have all that data, and because they have that data, they think that, well, I've got the data and I'm just going to, get deals. And again, if you have the data combined with these other things, that is where you're going to get the lift. And I think things start bubbling up for you. Everybody doing okay on time? I don't want to keep everybody past their meetings. Got to get out there doing stuff. But I'm happy to hang out. Anybody else want to come on for a question? We've still got a great group in there.
Got Nolan,
a lot of people
Nolan
not showing their
asking,
cameras. I know that. Must be out doing some fun stuff.
Let's see. We got here's one. How to communicate. How do we communicate that our apartment leasing service is actually increasing revenue higher than it costs?
Say it one more time, Jim.
How do we communicate that our apartment leasing service is actually increasing revenue for the client, I guess, higher than it costs them?
Right. Okay. So you have a product that'll make them $100,000 a year in revenue lift, and it maybe costs $25,000 a year, however you price it. I'm assuming that's the scenario. And I think part of it is, again, I would think about you probably have a product that's winning. You already have communicated that. I would look at what went right with all those conversations that had already converted. I would look at all the stuff that goes into when you're reaching out to people, how are you doing that? If in the email you're rushing the process, trying to get a demo or a meeting, then you're asking for commitment far too early. And maybe in those sort of reach out moments, it's instead of trying to get the meeting or the opportunity to show it or demo or all those things that you're going to communicate that lift you're going to get, is think about in that email, instead of trying to move the sale forward, to establish trust in the email. Maybe even asking questions, And so again, going back to you got to do the math for them. So for example, the way I've done it is, if you look at, there's money eyes and then there's real estate eyes. So if you're selling to a property manager, they're going to have real estate eyes. And if you're selling to an asset manager, they're going to have money eyes, or an owner, because the asset manager might know something the property manager doesn't, like, hey, in 18 months, there's going to be a capital event coming. So they're saying no to your thing or your budget because they know there's a capital event coming. And so, for example, I don't have the math in front of me here, but let's say it's $4,500 a month to take on your new project, your new thing. and they're like, wow, that's $4,500 a month. You know, 45. So if we're talking $55,000 a year is the real estate eyes. This is how much it cost, right? And to you, you're saying, well, it's going to make it 300,000 or some other lift, right? But they're looking at my NOI is my expenses are going to go up $4,500 because they're looking at the real estate eyes. If you start talking in terms of value to the owner or asset manager or someone doing a capital event, this is a $700,000 decision. That's what $45,000 or $54,000 a year is to them. So when you come in there with that email with this demo and just buy this thing or whatever, and it's going to have an expense of $50,000 a year, to them it's $700,000. So I might ask you, if you're making a $700,000 presentation, what would be different? Like, hold it that high. Okay. Now I will say, on the flip side of that, do the math on the lift that you get. Right? So if your lift is the same amount, $4,500, then do the value math. Like, listen, if you're ever going to be refinancing or exiting or this is what this product can do for you. We're seeing, and by the way, talk to your other investors or your other properties that you've sold to. Hey, you sold that property. You see the press release? Follow up with them. Ask them, hey, what happened? What'd you sell the property for? Oh, wow. And then you look at the math on the expense of your product, right? And then how much they got in rent increases or value savings or whatever that is. Do the math for them. They're going to be doing bigger things. They're not going to do the math for your product. Then you have a case study to say, listen, we got $1.2 million more in value because they did this thing that allowed them to sell rent faster or save money, whatever that is. That you got to do the money eyes. Anyway, long answer, but that's how I got $10 million capital improvements done. Well, we're going to spend $20,000 or $7,500 or whatever it is, but you talk about the business case. And sometimes it's not to the property manager. You got to find a way to, and maybe it's don't talk about their property. Pick on something else. Look, I know this is a hard decision, but let me show you how this worked out for somebody else. This is the lift that they got, right? So lean into those conversations you're already having because I'm sure you have customers already.
All right. David had a question. He's got his hand up. David, if you unmute, we can get you on. Maybe if you fire up that video too, it'd be cool.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Hopefully you'll see me in a second. Well, I don't know. You may not enjoy seeing me. But, you cannot start your video because host has stopped it.
Oh, well, we can hear you. I can hear you, David.
I'm just wondering, I'm an architect. I do multifamily and mixed use work, my firm does. And I imagine, it's a lot of good advice I'm hearing on branding and stuff. And thank you for that, by the way. And thank you for putting this together. I think most of it applies to architects as well. There we go. I'll see if this starts up. Hi there.
Hey, David, good to see you.
Hey. So a lot of this applies to architects as well. And I'm just wondering if anyone has any other advice for us lone architects out there trying to show how good we are and get our foot in the door with what is, at least around here, I'm in New Jersey. It's been, every time I get a client who wants to do multifamily, I say, wow, you think it's still going on? They say, there's no end in sight. It's incredible. It's incredible. So
yeah.
Anyway, especially on the train line going into the city, although it's been a little slow for that. We've had a couple projects on hold that are my clients spent a lot of money to be right across the street from the train station. And right now there's not much traffic going into the city yet. It's not near back to normal, but anyway, anyone have any advice and what do you think?
Yeah, I'll let the group think about some responses if they have them, and give that opportunity. In the meantime, I think definitely, obviously, a lot of what we talked about, and thinking about the developers right now are under a lot of pressure. Like, what are they worried about right now? Like getting their projects approved, the communities that they're built in, getting the probability of the elevations and all these things. Like, is this going to be received in the? But I think that also it's the uncertainties of product pricing, and I'm talking about like from appliances down to the move-in stuff, and the labor costs, the construction costs, and then what's the first question you're getting right now, right? Which is what's the cost? It's all
Crazy.
cost, because they're
I tell
squeezed.
people, yeah, if they can wait, wait, because it's crazy right now.
Yeah,
Cost and wait and time scheduling, it's just up in the air.
yeah, yeah. I know there's people that have done a fantastic job. I think developers, lean on the architects. I know when I was building a lot of, on behalf of an investor, we did senior, active adult, 55 plus, and regular market rate stuff. But I remember in those meetings the value that the architectural team brought from not just the scope of our project, but the scope of what they're learning on other projects. And so to me, I was getting like value engineering out of the
Mm,
conversations from other projects, so we could, look around corners, so to speak, right? And
yeah,
so, I mean, to the extent you can showcase in advance, what it's like to take a project from end to end, with the team, who they're going to get. Is it principals? Are you going to get project managers? Are there a bunch of change orders? Like, these are the things that are keeping them up at night. And to the extent you can knock these things down in advance, then, it's like you give them just a nudge forward of a higher level of confidence. Like, that's not like we're not, it's not going to be like the other project, because a lot of times you may be coming into a developer that hasn't developed with you, and so whatever they've done before, like that's you now, even though it may not be. So they're not
right,
always going to
right.
tell you what's in their head. But I would start paying attention currently to the meetings that you've had, or maybe to reflect on those and think about, like, where did they not approve a change order and why? What are they saying yes to? Where are they getting stuck? All of these types of things that's already happened, and then you start to they tend to also follow what others do. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, it's like, well, let's look. That's easy because I can price it. There's a pro forma, there's a model, and I can sell it. So I
Right,
think really,
convenient,
if
yeah,
I'm an architect today, I'm looking at the build technology. I'm following groups like Shadow Ventures, which we know very well. KP Reddy, look him up on LinkedIn. He's a man that I have high respect for. I've spoken at some of his innovation conferences. And I'm going to tell you right now, the technology is there to solve a lot of our affordable housing issues, and that's on the table for a lot of these developments. The problem is you have all this BIM technology and construction technology that's there and even globally being executed, but when those technologies meet city council, the plans get flattened, and,
mm,
and you can't move around rooms and friction happens and all that stuff. So there's a
yeah,
lot that is going on in the development and architectural space. I would start thinking about being an expert and not being like, you don't have to know it all, but you can curate it all. So start looking at, prop tech for built tech. It's BUIT, built, BUILT tech, and start looking, being an educator and helping them think of, like, look, this is a new thing. Like, we're getting 4 more square feet for this new thing, or this,
hmm,
and it's out there. I won't talk about it
cool,
today, but our innovation summit in May, we're going to be talking about a lot of those things. But it's
okay,
a big problem now. Elon Musk right now. Here's our bigger industry problem, guys: is that all of the developers and all the syndicators and all the owners, our only path to higher yields for the pressure that we're put on from our LP investors is raise the rent. And at some point, the wages are not going up, but the rents are. And at some point, now you get regulation and restrictions, and people are saying no to apartments, and you got this real problem. But when you look at anybody that's a developer or in multifamily and they want to create wealth, let's stop for a moment and look outside the industry at like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, and not getting into the politics of what they believe in and all that stuff, but they're the wealthiest people in the world. And I guarantee you, Jeff Bezos, and this is on record, shows up every day, and his culture of his business knows that their customers in the future will always want lower price for things. And they want to get the thing faster and easier. That's Bezos. So they know that when they're working on something, if they're working on a project and that team is working on making the customer have a lower cost of thing or an easier way to get it, they're doing the right thing. With Elon Musk selling a whole new industry of electric vehicles, he's asking what's called first principle questions. And we don't think like that. Just go on YouTube and ask, look, start researching. What does first principle thinking look like? So before the architects and the developers get to a project, we just build, we just do the action. But we don't think like, what does it even cost to make an apartment? The CEOs in multifamily, the future will be the ones that survive, will be the ones that are figuring out how to get appliances for less. They're going to need to do more than just buy and improve properties and raise rent. They're going to figure out, like Elon Musk is, like, how do I build or make a battery for 80 cents instead of $60? He's thinking about those things because he knows his mission is to make electric vehicles more affordable. There's not a lot of developers that are like, they want to make their rents affordable, but their customer is the investor, not the real customer. And so when they can look at built technology and think about, like, how do I build an apartment community? Where's all the money going? Why are we paying, why do we even, can we lease it differently? Can we operate it differently? Is it in the asphalt? I don't know where it is, but a good CEO needs to think in the first principle and think about those things because that's what's going to be sustainable. It's not easy. I don't necessarily have the answers, but I think we need to ask the questions. So for you, start thinking about all of that stuff and look different than any other company because you already have the capabilities, you have the designs, you have the technology, you probably have the team, you have the track record, but every other architect is doing that, not where things are going. And because they're probably busy. They're all busy.
Yeah, very. And it's easy to get in the groove and just figure, well, if they don't care if we do anything new, why should we waste the time doing anything new? But it's important beyond the building. And it's important to them too. They're thinking about what does it cost to build today? But if they really look at some of the things we've researched, they should be saying, well, what is it going to cost over the next 20 years to operate this building? And it might cost a little more today, but if they spent a little more on the best equipment and different appliances, then the cost over those next 20 years is much less and more sustainable. But whatever, that's my opinion. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that was helpful.
It was, and I hope to everyone else. I'll shout out that I want to ask if you're thinking about doing anything with affordable housing in the future. I'd be very interested in that. I hope to make a dent in that problem that we have before I leave this earth.
Yeah.
And also, if anyone, I'd love to network, and if anyone needs any help or has any questions, please reach out. I'm happy to help.
That's awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks for inviting me, Patrick.
Absolutely, David. And listen, even if you don't have Facebook, the group experience is great. Get in there. We just started it, and I think it's a great way for these types of connections to be made and value to be made between you guys, right?
I love it.
Definitely do that.
You're thinking of doing anything on LinkedIn? I think maybe, I don't know if most of us are more LinkedIn, but
yeah, I know the thing with LinkedIn is everybody they're not frequently there as much as they are on Facebook for the group experience,
Gotcha.
and it's hard to rally communities. And what we want
Yeah.
to do is just we have another group for my wife runs the multifamily women group, and we have I don't know 5,000 people in there, and it's been working well. And so right now we're kind of going where the people are. So
Yep. I don't blame you. Thank you. Didn't mean to take up this much time. Be
no,
well,
awesome.
everyone.
Thanks for spending the time, David. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All
great,
right.
great stuff. Just so everybody knows, we put the Facebook group link in the chat. So it's there. It's called Scaling Multifamily Brands. I'd love to have you go and get involved there too. Ryan had a question. Ryan Allen. Ryan, you got a question to bring up? Love to chat.
I had actually raised my hand earlier when I was going to give David some specific ideas that would kind of catch our eyes. Definitely would be converting existing buildings like office space and Best Buys and malls that are all going out of business to residential. We've been looking at trying to do that because acquisitions are too expensive. Building from ground up's getting too expensive. So now we're looking at converting extended stays or converting things. So just high level ideas on that would really catch our eyes. And that's just not getting detailed or anything, but that's I think that would be a good little blurb to educate people.
Awesome, Ryan. Tell us
Thank you.
where you are and what you're working on.
All right, I'm in Louisiana. We're owner operators, and we've gotten into the development. We're right at about 3,500 units. We're working with investors, but our major challenge right now is acquisitions, is finding the deal. I feel like if you find the deal and have the product, the investors are going to kick your door down. Capital is coming quick and easy, but it's finding the deals. I'm trying to figure out some good ways to stand out, because we have a lot of cold calls and people calling and looking at our properties, and I see what they have to go through to get in touch with us and how we can't return everybody or keep networking. So then on the other foot, I'm doing that and trying, cold calling and trying to figure that out. So I'm just trying to figure out what would make us stand out, what would what would drum up some ideas, some business or some acquisitions that's off market deals. Because by the time they get to the broker, you're paying top dollar, and you're not gonna really compete with that, and you're not gonna find an investor for that.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Number one, you're in the backyard of somebody I have high regard for. He's on the call, Kerry Kirby. You're going to want to reach out to him either on LinkedIn or whatever. That he's been involved in very big things, not only technology but in the real estate area about just economic development and those things, and has some deep relationships. It might be worth a call with him. Also, we've done a lot of things with video to allow us to get our time back, but also have a consistent approach to the message. So then the right investors are coming in, and sort of, they kind of self-select. In other words, if there's a frictionless process by the time they learn about a deal, like, okay, so you submitted a deal to us, here's what is going to happen. Our analyst is going to get it, and we'll spend probably 30 minutes on it, and then we're going to do this, and kind of give people, I don't want to automate it, but you can use video to accelerate some of those things without your time. And honestly, people are responding very well to those things. We run a national research project, and a lot of the things that we do in the stages brings up a lot of questions about this or that, and we just think of it like FAQ, but with a video. Like, when you get an LOI from me, here's what you expect, right? Like, and then there's that knowledge out there as well. The existing building, interesting concept. I don't know if Dale is on here, but there's a project here in Phoenix that was a complete office building to multifamily. And we documented some of those aspects and followed their success over a couple of episodes on multifamilystudios.com. That's our like Netflix for multifamily. And if you go to multifamilystudios.com, if you go to browse, just search like for One East Camelback. It's kind of cool. You'll meet Dale. He's someone you want to know in Phoenix. Um, but learned a lot, I imagine. I know we've had a lot of conversations about just moving through, you know, visualizing something new and, you know, just the patience that you're going to need with the developers and the partners and the operators. And they're looking at a fresh, that's the freshest redesign of anything I've ever seen. And you see this stuff in probably the bigger cities, but it's probably one of the most known projects out here in Phoenix. So definitely want to look into that. And also if I can get Dale in the group, maybe you can connect with him there. But that would be a good conversation to have. And then I'll open up to this group if anybody has any ideas around the, you know who else, Ryan, is important is Multifamily Investment Summit last year, or no, it was this year, July. I brought on a gentleman by the name of Danny Court, and he's local, but he's super smart, and you can actually, if you go to podcast, we have this podcast called The Wealthy Apartment Investor, and on one of those shows, I don't know what it is. I think it's like he's on there, one of the podcast shows. Maybe Jim, you can find it for me and put a link to it in the chat. But Danny talks about the impact. Basically, he's helping cities approve these things, but he's also saying that there's other projects that can be redesigned and redeveloped for multifamily. You just have to have sort of the guts and the understanding and the data to go after it. I bet you he'd jump on a call with you and start saying, like, here's what he's learning, here's how they're approaching it, because they do economic data and they're trying to change the way, the hearts and minds of people about how they see these types of projects in the communities. So, because you have projects that, no grocery stores are out there expanding. I don't know if you guys are seeing that stuff, right? So maybe there's some opportunities there.
Yeah, I mean, most of these buildings are well located, and if you see what the cap rate is on a well located building right now, you can put in a good amount of capital and still be in a good position.
Are you long-term hold? Like, do you have cycle? Like, are you syndicating it, or are you buying and hold it for
long-term holders? Mm-hmm. We're more on the trying to grow and expand side than selling. We've only sold a few properties in the last 5 years, so definitely long-term holders.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, listen, I've taken up a lot of your guys' time. I hope this was valuable. We'll do this again. Maybe if you want to send me, I think somebody asked what my email was. You can send an email to Patrick at mclients.com. That's easy. And of course, any of the emails that you probably already have from me anyway, you can respond to me. I'll get those. But it's Patrick at mclients. That's the letter M, clients.com. And if you got topic ideas or obstacles that are in your way, let us help you connect and knock some of those down. I don't have all the answers, but we do have access to some really bright people. And we just want to, again, just keep the conversation going. If you get into the Facebook group, we put a link in there, but it's Scaling Multifamily Brands on Facebook. You can connect with other people that are engaging in this event. And again, if you're on LinkedIn, follow us. It's Multifamily Leadership. Facebook, LinkedIn, all those places you can find us. And if you want show notes to any of the things that we're going to connect, you can always go to mclients.com. There's podcast episodes. We'll put links to things. And we'll have some fun. And if you have any ideas, love to hear from them and appreciate the questions and your time too, Jim, for rallying some of those questions. I know they came in quick and appreciate you guys. Thank you, David.
My pleasure. Fun.